yeah, yeah.
Testing.
That kind of stuff.
That kind of stuff.
Okay.
I think that was pretty
Okay.
kind of has a blue collar.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty high to be in Marshalltown. Blue collar, affordable kind of thing.
Are those pretty well filled up?
So,
Oh, really?
yeah, they rent them for probably only $100 a month or so.
Oh,
So they get decent cash flow out of this. It probably costs $250 probably for each, I guess. So I think they get, they're doing a lot of, Marshalltown's not their only place. They do a lot of places.
Yeah.
They're with like mid-size, like 30,000 or less size cities in Iowa. That's where I've seen them in other places. I don't know if they're going to win in the larger markets.
wow.
I'm just gonna sit there.
Sarah's still working?
They're still working. I can't, she's not going to stop.
Yeah.
You can stop if you want. No, I'm going to be a teacher.
Yeah, she must like it.
She likes it. That's good. Kids are getting bigger. The kids are at home. Both kids are at home.
Okay. Okay. Well, you get health insurance that way.
Yeah, they're good.
Oh, isn't it really?
Testing.
Because they only cover the teacher. So they
Yeah,
only,
but isn't there a family plan?
so here's the thing, but they only cover the cost of one teacher individual. So then we get stuck with all the expensive older teachers, where if we just went out because we pay like $1,000 a month out of pocket, which is almost what, maybe a little more than that, which is almost what it is, which is worthwhile.
And your coverage would have been just as
Would have been
good?
slightly less, probably, not much. So, it's a little bit better than not having it, but it's not a lot.
Okay.
Like, when I stopped working, they changed it after I stopped working. When I stopped working, it actually was, we were paying like $300 a month for family plan,
Yeah.
something like that. But then they changed it like a year or two after that.
Oh, wonderful.
So they only cover the, it's like, terrible timing. Terrible timing. But that's pretty bad. It's worse than any employer in Marshalltown. As far as like the family plan.
It used to be the
Like if
best.
you worked at Emerson, and now we work at Emerson, Atlantic City.
Yeah, it used to,
The parents used to work there before the health benefits.
right. Yeah, my wife took advantage of that.
Because you don't get paid a lot as parents, and then, yeah, the benefits plan would be able to, that's a really big deal.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've changed that. It's no longer good.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not bad health insurance, just not what it used to be.
So how many kids do you have?
We had two.
Two?
Yeah, my daughter is 8 now, son is 6. So second grader in kindergarten. So
Okay, yeah.
we're just starting to get into more activities. Soccer, Sawyer does a lot of dance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
We're just to that point where we're probably gonna start traveling a little bit more, not everything's like in the house.
Yeah.
Sawyer, this is Sawyer's first year traveling team soccer. So we have her first practices tonight. So that'll be a shock, I think, for her. But as far as getting out of the park and recreation, everyone knows how to play kind of thing.
Yeah. Hey, Doug. How you doing? Good, you?
Hector, can you slide over so that you're in view?
Yeah.
How you?
Not too bad. So you here just see what's going on, or? Oh, you can see how, that'd be good.
Oh,
You should get it done.
be on the board. Yeah, my wife's keep pushing me to do it. Really? I don't know. We'll see.
That was kind of your line of Fraser for how many years?
Yeah.
Build up the house and stuff at least. Know what's normal, what's not normal.
Well, yeah.
Which is a good, huge benefit.
Yeah, we'll see. What kind of, if you stir some of that stuff up, then I won't do it.
Pretty sure, I'm asking for a 2.5 foot variance. They may not give it, but I'm pretty sure it won't stir anything up about it.
I don't think it's it's gonna be a lot.
I just had to get one of the duplexes out of the floodplain.
Oh,
So I needed 2.5 foot variance.
you have to raise them up, or what do you have to do?
No, I just need to bring it forward closer to the road by 2.5 foot.
Oh,
And that's all my
I
problem.
see, I see, okay.
So,
Well, that must be on Westmoreland, it was west of Sixth.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, we have 5:02 PM on the clock, so we are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and get started here. First is roll call.
Yeah, roll call.
Here.
Here. Schultz.
Here.
Sanchez. Here. Thurston.
Okay, next on the agenda is to review and approve the minutes from our meeting all the way back in October of last year.
We have, any comments or
I move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I second.
Okay, with motion and approval, we will move on to item number 3, which is our public hearing, a variance request for 519 South 5th Street. We have the application request in front of us. If the applicant is here, please come up to the podium and address your name and your address.
Do we say your name up here? No. You guys can move the mic. Just okay.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brenda Villa. This is my husband.
Jesus Villa.
And we did submit a variance report for 519 South 5th Street. And it was because of the current zoning regulations, we wouldn't be able to build, even though it's an industrial zone. There is a residence next to it that was built before the current zoning regulations. So we wanted to bring our case here and request that we be able to build the barn and style structure.
Is there anything outside of the application that we have in front of us that you wish to share with us before the board discusses and asks questions?
No, I submitted everything on the application.
Thank you. We will open it up to the board for questions and discussion.
Okay. Okay. Do we sit down?
I have a question. Can you explain how the proposed building is shown in the drawings relates to the existing building?
Okay. Yes, I will pull it up here.
So right now, there is no existing building, it's just a vacant lot. And our proposal is to build a pole barn or Morton building on the land, on the piece of land.
Did,
Okay, what was the question?
Referring to the property to the north, a neighboring property?
Yes.
yeah.
How does it relate in terms of height?
I believe, well, the property on the north end, they're built right on the property line. So we would like to build our structure at least 5 feet or 6 feet away from it due to the boundary lines that are around it, so we can be able to have a vehicle pass through the side of it. It mirrors the property on the,
On the north end.
no, it would be the south.
Oh.
It would be like the same.
It would still be a big barn and style structure, just like the property on the north, except that it wouldn't have, like what it is, it's like a house. The property on the north has, part of it is like, very small part of it is a residential area. So because of that, the current zoning, it would be different, even though that whole area in Marshalltown is deemed industrial. So that is why we're presenting the case. But our structure that we would like to build would resemble that and all the other buildings.
And our structure wouldn't be necessarily built right next to the residential
They're part,
the
yeah.
part. It would be built right next to the guys' shop. Because there's like a shop and then a residential property in front of it. So ours will be next to his shop.
And this aerial view I'm looking at on this page here, this is an old aerial view, correct? Because this,
Yes, correct.
Yes,
Property is not in existence.
it's been demolished.
Yep, the city demolished it.
Yours always stays on, so.
yes, so just for point of clarification, the aerial view drawing that we have with the red lines around it indicating the property in which you want to build on, that residence is no longer there.
Correct.
To the south, is there two parcels or just the one?
Two.
Or the-
Two.
Two, where the old church was and then an additional property?
Correct.
And then yours?
Correct. And those lots are vacant now too because they did have structures and they've all been demolished.
I've got a couple
Concerns about proximity, being so close to another property, even if there's a 5 or 6 foot difference, it's better than it being right next to it. But from a fire safety standpoint, I'm not the fire marshal, but I find that concerning and worth discussion. And, that's part of the reason why we have these setback rules, so that those safety protocols are in place.
Yes.
Is this like a prefab or a kit building where you would not be able to make it smaller and have it still meet your needs and fit within the setback requirements?
So we were hoping if there was if there was a way we can propose like a fireproofing wall.
At least for sure on that side to protect them because with the current setbacks, if we have to build 10 feet, that really wouldn't give us any room given the size of our parcel right now to like have an actual building like this.
And
While I appreciate the restrictions that are in place on this property as far as the width and length of the property, those things have not changed. And the way that you purchase the property remains the way that it is today. And our setback regulations were also in place at the time that you guys purchased the property. So I guess that's where I'm having a little difficulty in, I think there, and I'm sure that, or I'm assuming there was, but a little more research before purchasing the property so that if we do not grant the variance request, that, hopefully you guys don't have a piece of land that is unusable for what you want.
Right. And we can understand that, I guess their big issue is that, that property was, when it was built right over the property line.
I completely understand that, and that's why that's not in our code today. That's why, that parcel is not required to be moved, but that's why a parcel exactly like that, built like that, would not currently be acceptable with the codes that we have in place.
It wouldn't be that exact same size, so then we would still be the 5 or maybe even 6 feet away, but I understand the concern.
So the property that sits to the west of that, it would be very similar to that. That's what we're hoping to build, something like that. So that way we can have a little pathway on the side. So something to kind of have reference to relate to.
Have you considered, given that we're trying to meet the current regulations and setbacks, acquiring the property to the south, the parcel to the south?
We, are you saying like how we talked? Sorry.
I'm saying you want a bigger building than the site allows. Can you consider more property?
We did. We
Yeah.
went. We
We did reach out to that property owner. At the time, they weren't too sure of being willing to sell it either, because we've reached out to that one and the one further south as well. But yes, we did
And
consider.
they don't want to sell. In fact, they put in an offer for the land we have.
You know, and this is the tough part. We want to support entrepreneurs and new businesses in town, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that, you know, I know we go on a case-by-case basis and we do not set precedents, but if we allow a variance for this, then there could be the misunderstanding that then there is an interpretation that, well, if we let you guys do it, then why would we say no to somebody else in the future? So this is the tough part where it's like, you know, if we go by the book and follow the rules, which were publicly available to you guys before you purchased the property, that's where it's tough. So for me, I think in all fairness and knowing that the rules and regulations were published and readily available to the public prior to you purchasing the property, I think it's tough for me to say yes. I want you to build a building there, but it's going to have to meet the setback requirements that we have in place for safety.
I would just add that when we make considerations of proposals like this, even though we understand what you're trying to do, even though, you know, we recognize the complexities of accomplishing your goal, we have a number of things that guide us in our decision-making in terms of, you know, is the land in question a reasonable return? Is this something that's self-imposed? Is this something that is, and we can't use economics as a guide. So as I go down this list that we're supposed to examine, I can't say yes to hardly any of them.
Okay.
So I'm with Kelly. It's difficult for me to, although I recognize what you're trying to do and encourage you to find another solution, but to think of a variance in this instance is hard for me to do.
Any other comments or questions or input from the board?
My question, and you brought this up, by being able to do within the mandated setback of the 10 feet, does that take away every option for you to be able to do your building there by losing that extra 4 or 5 feet?
Have to be a lot smaller.
It would just have to be a lot smaller, yeah.
Yes, so then we wouldn't be able to have the same dimensions that we were hoping for. So, yes.
Correct, correct. Wouldn't that be, are you doing for construction or?
It's for an electrical,
Business.
for electrical
Sure.
business, yep.
Sure.
We have to sometimes stock large rolls of reel of wire. And
Sure.
there's just some, like trenching equipment, excavators and stuff like that. So that it does require a little bit more
Space.
Understandable. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we are ready for a motion, I would like to remind the board that the motion does need to be in the affirmative.
Before Kelly, I just wanted to let you know about like public comments and also just I noticed that you guys got ahead of it. I just want to go over like the memo as well. So it's like the memo that we're discussing about today is 519 South 5th Street. It was a variance application from Brenda and Jesus Villa. The setbacks that were being requested was to allow from the application was a 4-foot side setback to the adjacent residential property. That's to the north of the existing property. It's currently zoned as a general industrial location, which was mentioned in the discussion earlier before this, which is also in line with our comprehensive plan, our 2030 comprehensive plan. Regarding that rules and regulations, it could be found on our table 156B005-1 on non-residential and mixed-use district, which states, let me go ahead, under the general industrial setbacks, for the side setbacks, under the table notes, on non-residential uses applies if adjacent to a residential use, or zoning district, 0 for non-residential uses if adjacent to any other use or zoning district. The prohibitations and use or exceptions would follow, would be use, limited use, special use, non-conformities, conditional of approval, city ordinance or a city code of ordinance, other laws or regulations. The review criteria not be self-imposed, not be based on cost, unique circumstance, minimum relief, necessary relief, commonly enjoyed rights, and not a special privilege. Effect, and then just effective of approval, partial variations, or other approvals. So, like I said, in order for those to be approved, we have to make that decision in the affirmative, and it has to be followed by that criteria that I listed. And we have that reference from the ISU extension that's included on the packet. And for that to get approved, it would have to be a 3 affirmatives. Since we have a board of 5 members, it would have to be 3 in the affirmatives. And and also going back to the public comments, I've received an email from Geocraft, and that being approval for this location. The zoning ordinance were in place, and they were asking about stormwater concerns, which I talked to the city engineer, so there would have to be some stormwater being addressed if this did proceed with approval. I also received, I put this on top of your guys' packets. I received 7 signed packets stating that they are not enough of approval for this project being too close to the property and not being compliant with our zoning ordinance and codes, and a couple of phone calls as well, not being in favor of this proposal.
Do we need to open it up for a public comment?
Yes, this is a public comment, so if anyone in the public would like to speak, we will have to open that in the public comments.
I think the applicants may be seated. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to speak specifically on the 519 South 5th Street. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address that? Okay.
Heather Thomas, Public Works. Just like some clarification in the memo, is my understanding correct that the setback requirement for this property is 10 foot because there's a residential use to the north?
Yes, correct.
If the residential use was not there and it was just zoned general industrial, would the setback be 0 feet?
Correct, yes.
Is there an opportunity to switch the building to the other side of the property where the setback could be 0 on the south side, and switch the drive to the north side and still allow for the development? Thank you.
Point of clarification, you're saying the parcel to the south, if we could change.
Yeah.
So there could be, so you could build on the lot line over here on the south side?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I may be not quite accurate in this, but I think Kelly's comment about firewall is still relevant, even at 10 feet. I think the adjacency of these 2 buildings, if they're less than 20 feet apart, would still require a 1-hour firewall. So I'm not sure you're solving all the problems that way. The other thing I'm concerned about is this comment that was meant about the stormwater. There's a lot of roof area here. We're losing a lot of percolated ground that would absorb some of this. And the height of these buildings is going to create a lot of shadows. So I think a driveway on the north is always not a good idea because it will be constantly in shadow in the winter at a height of this building. And difficult to maintain and use. So it's just another consideration that would property owner would have to bring to mind.
Okay, are we ready for a motion from someone on the board?
I move that the variance proposal for 519 South Fifth Street be approved as presented.
Okay, roll call.
Second.
Oh. Need a second.
I second.
All right, Schultz,
No.
Thurston,
No.
Engel,
No.
Sanchez.
No.
Motion denied. We will be moving on to item number 4 on our agenda. Public hearing variance request for 834 and 836 West Merle Hibbs Boulevard, Timothy and Sarah Nichols.
My name is Tim Nichols. We're looking at building the last 2 duplex buildings there in West Merle Hibbs. There's currently an association there with 2 buildings that are already developed. They're the 2 white buildings on the end there, if you've been on West Merle Hibbs. What we were looking to do is build 2 buildings that are the same dimensionally as the 2 existing buildings in the association. The first building we're able to build, and that's on lot, I believe, 30 and 32. We can fit that into the lot. The issue we ran into is that on lot 34 and 36, we ran into floodplain issues, getting the duplex out of the floodplain and keeping it the same duplex as the duplexes next to it. So we're kind of stuck in that situation. We can either build the same thing, which I think is more beneficial, or we can change the building and build something that's dissimilar to the rest of the townhomes in that association. The goal with this variance request is to allow us to build that same building as the duplex next to it and keep all the buildings in that association the same. They'll look the same, they'll be the same. We're looking at, if you have the diagram in front of you, we need to pull it forward about 2.5 feet to get it out of our floodplain there. That puts us in front of our front setback for that property. We are also 0.4 feet, it looks like, too close to the left setback and about 2.5 feet inside our rear setback with the left lot 8 duplex. I'm open to whatever questions you have, but essentially we're just looking for a variation on some of the feet there to allow us to build the same duplex as a duplex next to it and keep it out of our floodplain there.
Okay, we'll open it up for comments and questions and discussion to the board.
Hey Kelly, if you want, I can go ahead and do the memo real quick so I can go ahead and let the audience know what we're presenting and also the board members. So I have a request for a variance application for Tim, for Nichols and Sarah Nichols, I believe. Let me go ahead and pull up the application. Yes, an application for 834 and 836 West Merle Hibbs to allow a closer setback on the rear for both properties. Like Tim mentioned, there is a floodplain behind us, so that's the reasoning behind those subdivisions on those rear setbacks, the unusual rear setbacks. So he's requesting a closer setbacks, and our current zoning ordinance allows a 20-foot setback in the infill lot, which this would be classified as. And they would have to, like I said, they requested a variance application just because if it's not allowed and it's with the home group, I can't remember the name, the HOA, it's like that wouldn't allow it to be built as the same, so making it a difficult build for that lot. It's currently zoned as a medium residential, and let's see here, I can't find the application, so give me 1 second, I apologize.
So just to clarify, when Hector's talking about that the setback in residential normally on this situation is only 20 foot from the lot line, there's a PUD on all these properties that designate what the setback is for these properties for this Merle Hibbs addition. The issue we ran into is that the PUD also, if the PUD would have been followed on the previous buildings, our building sizes all would have been smaller because dimensionally, all the buildings would have only been 50 foot deep. Because the PUD wasn't followed on the previous buildings, and now we're trying to match the buildings that already exist, the issue we run into is that we have a 54-foot deep building, that these lots were designed for 50-foot deep units, and now we're trying to fit that 54 deep building to match the other buildings on a lot that's only developed to have a 50-foot deep unit on it. So that's the situation we're running into, is that we already have these existing buildings. We're trying to follow the building plan, but because the lots were not designed for the size of the buildings that already exist, now we have our building we're trying to make similar, and that's the situation we have right now. That's when he's talking about what the actual residential setbacks versus the PUD that defines the setbacks for these townhomes. So you have a conflict there.
And then I looked up the application, so I had the same requirements, like not self-imposed, not based on cost, unique circumstance, minimum relief, common enjoyments, and not a special privilege. And like I said, if you have any additional questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
I guess the obvious question for me is design a different building.
And the response to that is, like what I said, you can put a different building on that property. The issue run into is you'll have a townhome association with 3 buildings that look the same, and you'll have one building that's different. It's not that you couldn't. It's not that you couldn't. We're gonna create non-uniformity in the townhome association if we do that, and which is something that the townhome association would probably appreciate we didn't do. It's not that we can't.
And this
do it.
association that exists is just the 3 buildings, the 2 that exist, and the one
Correct.
that you're going to build?
It's the 2 buildings that exist, the one building we can build following the current design, and then this additional building.
So the residential buildings farther to the east are a separate homeowners
Correct. There are
association?
2 associations there. So, yeah, it's just a balance of, it's a minimal difference we're asking for, so we're not asking for a variance. We're within what the normal residential setbacks would be on this situation anyways. It's a PUD that's been conformed with up to this point that's causing the issue. We're only asking that we essentially be allowed to build the same building, which wouldn't conform with the PUD that hasn't been followed up to this point.
For me, that's a little bit of a tough argument, that because somebody else didn't follow the rules previously, that we want permission to not follow the rules too. That's kind of the tough part for me. And I appreciate the wanting to have uniformity, and having, if you're interested in a townhome, you like that, you like the uniformity, you like things looking a certain way. But I would also assume that even if it was that 50-foot length rather than 54, it would still be similar exterior materials, vinyl siding, perhaps faux stone, asphalt shingle roof, same height. So from your average pedestrian walking down the street, I don't know that you'd say that building looks dramatically different than the ones right next to it by a 4-foot difference.
Clarify, Tim, but you're saying that also with the way it stands now, it puts it in the floodplain.
If we were to put a 54-foot, see, we could follow the front setback and put it in a floodplain, but that creates that's a huge issue to put a house in a floodplain. You have to pull insurance, you have to do all those kind of things. You're not going to want to do that, especially on a new development. So the floodplain creates the issue. But really the issue was you have a PUD that wasn't being followed before. If you want a uniform building, you have to continue not following the PUD. And it's not, I'm not going to disagree it can't be redesigned, but I just don't see the ask here is so minimal. We're asking for essentially 2.5 feet inside of the setbacks. When you look at the value difference between a redesign versus a variance on something like this, that causes us to ask for a variance because that makes more sense from our perspective. And a part of it to you guys is, do you want more uniformity in a townhome association? You think that's something you value, or is that something you don't value and isn't worth trying to continue in this context?
Again, I think the uniformity would be there, again, with the siding materials and where garage doors and entry doors are going to be placed. It would be congruent with what's there, whether it's 50 feet or 54 feet. And I appreciate that it is technically a small ask, and again, we do not set precedents here, but the last ask was also a very small ask. And again, I appreciate it's a difficult barrier to get over that the previous townhomes that were built were essentially not built properly. For me, that argument is hard for me to buy into, that because somebody else did it wrong, that I want to follow suit with that as well. I know you're a talented builder and you know what you're doing, and I have a feeling that if it has to change by 4 feet, I think that you would still be able to accomplish that.
The engineer may have some comment on this. Can the problem of the floodplain issue be dealt with by elevation rather than translation of the building?
It can be dealt with. It's a financial issue then at that point. To go through the redesign of that, it wouldn't make any sense anymore.
And see, that's exactly the thing that we can't take into consideration is the financial impact. That is one of the things that is not allowed for a variance condition. So in respect to conformity, I'm one that thinks, uniformity is boring. So it wouldn't bother me at all if this building was slightly different in more than just 4 feet of different of depth. And perhaps this could provide some options to people who would otherwise not want one of the other buildings, but maybe there's a characteristic in this building that would attract them to it. So the uniformity thing, to me, as a person, is kind of a non-issue because I don't like uniformity anyway.
Correct, and I understand that, but in a townhome, someone that likes a townhome normally is looking for, and the association obviously would like to have everything be the same. You have both things there.
Was there any phone calls, emails, or public comments related to this variance request?
There was a couple, but after explaining what the variance application was for, there was no concern regarding it.
Do we have any public comment from anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this request? If no further discussion from the board, we will need a motion, again, in the affirmative.
Motion to approve
As written.
as written.
Second.
All right, Thurston,
No.
Engel,
Yes.
Sanchez,
No.
Schultz.
No.
Thank you.
Motion denied. Seeing nothing else on our agenda, do we have any other further requests or a next meeting planned for next month?
As of now, there's not been any request or any related to this topic for Board of Adjustments.
Okay, with nothing further, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I received that.